Rabbi Ицхaка Shapira, and I'm the founder of Ahavat Amim Ministries and Yeshivat Shuvu. I'm so glad that week after week, day after day, for the last 7-8 years, you're joining us faithfully and trusting us to bring you the word of the Lord. As we all know, we are in Acharit Ayamim. The word Acharit Ayamim literally means the last days. This is the season when we believe at Ahavat Ministries that God commissioned us and ordered us as Jewish believers in the Messiah to prepare the greater body of Messiah, Jew and Gentile alike, to usher and prepare a way for the coming of the Messiah. I wanted to take a few minutes today to answer a few questions that we receive regarding a specific prophecy in Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23. It is important to note that when we look at prophecies, it is each and every prophet who is like a cameraman who see an event with a certain camera angle. We read about the same event that we're about to read about today in Zechariah 8:23. We read about it by the prophet Isaiah. Also Jeremiah and Ezekiel speak on the exact same event. So it's important to us to put the puzzle completely together. Number two, when we study prophecies, it's also important for us to read things in context. Context is critical. You ask the question, what is the context of the wonderful prophecy of 10 Gentiles, who, as it says, will hold the garment of a Jewish man? What is the context of this prophecy? Well, to answer this question, we have to start at the beginning. God says, and I quote the following. He says, Kineti leTzion, kin'a gdola, uchema gdola kineti la. What does that mean? He says, I have a great zeal, a great jealousy for Zion. He used the word chema, that means right, but chema comes from the Hebrew word chom, heat. I am in love with Zion. I am so much in love with Zion that I am ready to return back to Zion. In chapter 8, God, in essence, described his return to Zion during the last days. This returning process to Zion have a name for it. It's called in Hebrew Acharit Ayamim, the last days. So when we read this chapter, it's important to understand what is going to be taking place. One of the things that the Lord mentioned in this, he says that the people will return to the city and the city will be called Yerushalem. Yerushalayim name is Yerushalem. The wholeness, the complete. Exactly what God says that will happen has happened. God said, when the people of Israel return, I will return with them. And he says, when the city become complete, then we know that we are in the very end of the last days. What is this called? Yerushalem 1967. In 6 days, Israel miraculously was able to capture all of Jerusalem all the way to the Temple Mount. Please understand, when this took place, the next event that is described here in Zechariah chapter 8, verse 4 and 5 is what we're seeing in front of our eyes. Let's read it together. It says, כה אמר אדוני צבאות. So said the Lord of armies. עוד ישבו זקנים וזקנות ברחובות ירושלים, ואיש משענתו בידו מרוב ימים, ורחובות העיר ימלאו ילדים וילדות משחקים ברחובותיה. כה אמר אדוני צבאות, כי יפלא בעיני שארית העם הזה בימים ההם. What will happen? We will have little children playing again inside the street of Jerusalem. It will be a miraculous event that after being departed from the city for 2,000 years, God himself will bring the people to recognize that it is God and God alone who return us to this land. Why did he return us to the land? Because the Geulah, the redemption of the house of Israel, is right upon us. Notice that the text used the words Bayamim Ahem. Let me explain this to you. When the prophets of Israel speak about the times nearing to the coming of the Messiah, they use two terms, Bayamim Ahem or Bayom Ahu. They refer to the same thing. In those days, in the days that we call Acharit Ayamim, the latter days, the end of the days, those are the days of the Messiah. The context of Захарии chapter 8 continue on when the God of Israel clearly provide a roadmap for the return of the Messiah. Number one, the Jewish people will return to the land. We can put a check mark next to this. Number two, it says that Jerusalem will be in control of a Jewish hand. We can also put a check mark around this. Number three, the people will recognize that God and God alone is the one who has done this miracle. We can put a check mark about this. And those days, the days that Israel will return to the land, specifically to Jerusalem, they called Bayamim Ahem. Just as we hear in the words of Захарии later on, when he says, Bayom Ahu Yeh Adonai Echad. In those days, the Lord will be one and his name will be one. It represents the coming of the Messiah. So we read Захарии here, we need to understand the contextual meaning behind this word. The roadmap of God continue, and it says, and I quote, Ki zera ashalom gefen titen priya, verse 12. It will be the seed of peace that will bring those things, and the land will be prosperous. People will work the land. God, in essence, saying here that the land will produce fruit. We will be returning back and we will work the land. Now, here is what he's saying, that the last check mark that the children of Israel must do. And he says, verse 15, God revealed his final plan. And he says, Ken shavti. זממתי בימים האלה להיטיב את ירושלים ואת בית יהודה, אל תראו. God gave a warning to Israel right before the calamities that are about to take place, namely Gog and Magog, the battles, the attacks from the northern borders of Israel. He says, I have a plan. And God says to Israel, do not fear. And here is what you must do in those days. He says in verse 16, Ele advarim asher ta'asu. Here is what you're going to do. דברו אמת איש אל רעהו, אמת ומשפט שלום שפטו בשעריכם. He said, do you want to experience the ultimate peace? Take care of the way you treat one another. Take care of the way you judge one another. Make sure that ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. He is what you do to prepare for my coming. And here he's saying in verse 18 that he's going to take the day of fasts and he's going to turn them to a day of joy and gladness. Remember again, the prophet here seeing picture. He doesn't see things exactly in a sequence, but he's seeing pictures in front of our eyes. And here the surprise comes. The God of Israel through the prophet Захарии said, there is going to be one more thing that is going to take place before your fullness. Do you realize that from chapter 8 verse 1 all the way to verse 22, God described the event that we call the fullness of the Jews. But in verse 23, God described the event that he called the fullness of the Gentiles. And listen to what the God of Israel have to say. And I quote, כה אמר אדוני צבאות, בימים ההם, אשר יחזיקו 10 אנשים מכל לשונות הגויים, החזיקו בכנף איש יהודי לאמור, נלכה עמכם, כי שמענו אלוהים עמכם. There's going to be one more miraculous event that's going to be happening when the nations will see the miracle of the state of Israel, the miracle of the return of the Jewish people to the land, the miracle of the land. They will start to realize that the God of Israel is a true and living God. And in those days, they will call upon the Jewish people and they will say, we want what you have. Will you allow us to walk with you? This event, friends, called in the scriptures the fullness of the Gentiles. Paul says that this event is a mystery because somehow through this event of the nations returning to the God of Israel, cleaving to the house of Jacob, guess what? In that, the final salvation comes. Let us understand this verse together in context. It says here, כה אמר אדוני צבאות, so said the Lord of army, בימים ההם. I already explained what the meaning of the word בימים ההם. בימים ההם mean in the very last days. Each and every one of you who watch me today, who is not Jewish, who cleave to the Jewish people and to the house of Jacob, he is a fulfillment, a prophetic and miraculous fulfillment of this verse. Recently, a person told me that he does not speak about the Jews. Let us see together if that claim hold truth. It says that 10 men from the nations, from the different tongues. And here, how do we know that this is not during the millennium period? This is important because some in the Hebrew roots and in Christianity believe that is in the millennial period. It is not. And here is how we know it is not. Because the book of Zephaniah tells us that in the last days, when Messiah is here, he will return us to a single language, to Hebrew. Zephaniah chapter 3 said it. But here the nation are still in different tongues. This is exactly what it says when it used the word mikol leshonot. They speak different languages. They are still under the curse of the Tower of Babel. But the fact of the matter is that they return. 10 of them is important. Why? Because a Jew wears 10 or 4, I should say, 4 garments, 4 tzitziot, 4 corners to a tzitzit. A Gentile, 10 hold it, that's 40 around a Jew. But there are 17 nations. So if you do the math, 4 times 10 times the 17 nations, you get the number 2,800. The ratio of a Jew to a non-Jew believers in the world will be 1 Jew to 2,800 from the nations. Now, it says in the text that they hold the garments of a Jewish man. The question is this man Yeshua? Or is this man the Jewish people? The answer is not so simple as it seems. For starters, Yeshua is the one who is called the Son of God. And Israel is also the one who is called the Son of God, according to the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 22, 23. So who is the Son of God? Israel and the Messiah. This man that is being held to, in a literal meaning, in the literal context, can never mean Yeshua and have to be applied to the Jewish people. It is a simple understanding of subject-verb agreement of the text. It says, we are holding the garment of a Jewish man. By the way, all the commentators speak about Israel, all Jewish commentators, and all Christian commentators speak about the Messiah. The Christians commentators are wrong because they don't understand the subject-verb agreement. He says, we will walk with you, where the subject is the Jewish man. The subject is the Jewish man. The action is the verb is walking with you. The Hebrew word you here in the text is the word imchem. If it's spoken on a single entity of a Jew, the word would be imcha. But the word is not in a singular. The word is in a plural. The word is imchem. Therefore, this verse applies to all the Jewish believers. And one could argue without any problem, since Yeshua is the master and he lives inside the heart of a Jewish believer, that it's also applied to the Messiah of Israel, because they are one in the same. Please understand that any attempt to diminish the role of the Jews in the last days is nothing short of anti-Semitism. It is Paul who says in Romans chapter 9, verse 1 through 5, that the covenants and the promises and the work all belong to the Jewish people. And here we see in the text the ultimate calling of the Jews, the fulfillment of the promise that God has given Israel in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. The Lord says, and I quote, "And you will be to me mamlechet kohanim vegoy kadosh, ve'ele advarim asher tedaber el bnei Israel." Israel is called to be a nation of priests. What is the job of the priests? The job of the priest is to be a mediator between God and the people. And here we see a picture of Israel being like the high priest. Yes, the Messiah is also the high priest. And we cannot separate the Messiah from Israel. We are talking about the believing Israel, of course. The believing Israel is the nation of priests. Their fullness has come before the coming of the Messiah. This is part of God's plan of redemption. So what do? They take the Gentiles under their wing and they let them hold the garment. What does the garment, the corner, what's called in Hebrew the Tzicit, what does it represent? It represents the covenant. Let us see what's happening all throughout the world today. The nations are returning home. They are returning to the God of Israel and to the covenants of Israel. Just as Paul said in Ephesians chapter 2, you are no longer strangers or foreigners, but now you have a way to come in to the covenants of the commonwealth house of Israel. In the last days, we're going to continue to see an increase of this. The question is, will the nations come to the covenant through the Jewish people who believe in Messiah or not believing in Messiah? It is not the same. Let me stress it to you that I believe that this man that's standing Ish Yehudi, all of Israel called Ish Yehudi, is talking about all believing Israel. Now notice with this, as I told you a minute ago, that this verse repeats itself in other places in the Torah, in the prophet. And let me quote to you from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 14, who gives us yet another camera angle to understand what cleaving, what grabbing to the Cicit of the Jew would look like. It says, Isaiah 14:1, כי ירחם אדוני את יעקב, ובחר עוד בישראל, וניחם על אדמתם, ונלווה הגר עליהם, ונספחו על בית יעקב. What is going to take place? Exactly what the prophet Захарии told us that will take place. The Jews will first return to the land. That will be step one. And then after they step on their land, something supernatural will happen. The Gentiles will come on in and they will say, we want to cleave to the Jewish people. Who do they cleave to here? It is clear that it says Bet Yaakov, the house of Jacob. The Ish Yehudi, the Jewish man that we see in Захарии chapter 8 verse 23, is none other than the house of Jacob, the Jewish people. And what they will do, the text says here that they will cleave, the word in Hebrew, the word nispechu, they will become part of the Jewish people. How is that possible? This is indeed a mystery. A mystery that none of us can truly understand. Only God and God himself. They take a dead branch without covenants, without promises, and bring them to the fullness of their faith. Who is benefit from the cleaving to the house of Israel? One would say that the Gentiles did, because they come on in and they receive the fullness. But as a Jew, let me tell you, when you come in as a non-Jew into our covenants, it is truly us who benefit. Jacob can be full again because he's truly fulfilled his calling of bringing people in. And in that, the fulfillment of the covenant of Abraham through Messiah Yeshua is taking place. Again, an interpretation that tried to diminish the Jewish people, to try to say that this verse does not speak about the house of Israel, is contrary to the house of Israel, contrary to Judaism, contrary to the New Testament, and contrary to the Torah itself, and is flat out anti-Semitic. My challenge to you, come on in. Hold on to the Jewish believers, because the Jewish believers and Yeshua are one and the same. And when you cleave in, you become one and the same with us. And in this, we see the creation of the one new man. And in this, all of Israel, even the non-believing Israel, will be saved. Hope you've been blessed and challenged. This lesson is made for you because I thought that I have to clarify it. There are so many erroneous teachings on this verse. Please share this teaching with your friends and family. And most importantly, come on in. God bless you and shalom.